Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Hope, and if you clicked on this video, maybe you're struggling with acne, skin issues, whatever the case may be, and I wanted to share my journey with having hormonal cystic acne for probably like over 15 years of my life. I want you to know, I know how frustrating it is where you're at right now, how genuinely physically painful it can be to have hormonal cystic acne, and you might have a similar skin type to me, and if I help even one person decrease their pain from cystic acne even a little bit, I think it'll be worth it. I whittled it down to 5 things, 5 behavior changes or products or methods that I used to get clearer skin. So basically what I'm going to go over in this video is a background on me and when my skin issues started, a bit about my journey and what I tried over the years, and then I'm going to share 5 things that ended up, in my opinion, being the reason that my skin has settled down. So let's get into it. First of all, I want to say, no, I do not have perfect skin, but I think that that gives a bit of credence to my words. I'm not just somebody who, which by the way, not shaming anyone, not downplaying anyone's experience if this is your experience. I didn't have bad skin for like 2 years of my life or even 5 years of my life. It's been most of my life, most of my adult life even, and so I've been through all of the things. I put my skin through all of the stuff that they say to do to cure it, and throughout all of that trial and error, my skin did get worse. A lot of the things that I did to my skin made it worse, which does have lasting effects on your skin. So I have pockmarks on my face, I have lines on my face that are caused from deep pitted acne scars, and I have, you know, a lot of imperfections. And so I just want to put that out there. If you're, you know, hoping to see someone with absolutely perfect skin, that's not me. But I still think what I have to say could be worth it for someone out there. So here's my background. I'm gonna hopefully put some photos somewhere here that I could find to illustrate what my skin looked like at some points in my life. So the first time I remember getting breakouts, I was, I think, in between 4th and 5th grade. So I was probably only like 10, maybe 11 when all this started. I think it was probably worse when I was about 12, 13, 14. That's when I started, like, I had to go to a dermatologist. It was bad. If I found a good picture to put, you could see that it started on my forehead really badly. And it's kind of crazy. So I'm 34 now. I still see that, I don't know, mark that those initial breakouts had on me, even from when I was really young. And that's something that I just have to deal with, but that's where it all started. So I was super young, 10 or 11, went to a dermatologist. Looking back, the dermatologist I saw just gave really bad advice. I think that nowadays there's probably better information about specifically how to help younger kids with acne. I remember one dermatologist literally telling me, oh, go in the ocean, sit in the sun without sunscreen on, get a sunburn, and that will kill the bacteria that's causing your acne. And so I definitely did that. Like, I would try anything. And looking back, obviously that was horrible for my skin. And I do think it's okay to have moderation when it comes to wearing sunscreen, but if you're going on a beach vacation and sitting in the sun, you should wear sunscreen no matter what age you are and no matter what part of your body. If it's exposed to the sun, you should be wearing sunscreen. And so I got really bad sunburns, which of course made everything worse. It made my skin like react probably. So I had some bad sunburns. I know that it definitely caused some like creasing in my forehead because that's where my acne was the worst. So I almost like was trying to get a sunburn on my forehead. So that's just one example of got some bad advice from dermatologists. And also in general, I went to dermatologists, they gave me creams, they gave me pills, and it didn't come with clear instructions. I think when you're young, you think spot treatment, because that's what the commercials show you, you know, some celebrity teen that actually has perfect skin and they're just putting like one dot of something on the breakout and then it goes away. I feel like no one explained to me that you actually have to rub it all over your face every day. Just a pea-sized amount all over your face every day, and over time your skin will turn over and it will improve. So I never learned that. Anyway, fast forward, high school, kind of had, you know, the same experiences, kept going to a dermatologist. Benzoyl peroxide was something that I was on for a long time, which I do think probably helped, but it bleached all of my clothes. And I have my quilt that I used in college, and it like is bleached all over because I was putting basically peroxide on my face, and was worth it up until a certain point, and I was like, I can't just keep throwing away all my clothes and towels and stuff because they're all bleached. I did have some luck in my early 20s, and I know it was the medicine because my stress level was high. I just started my first job and I was stressed and I was working like 12, 14 hours a day. I was on public transit. I hated my life, to be honest, but my skin was really good. And that was because of this medicine called Axone, I believe. But at a certain point, I stopped going to the dermatologist that I had been using. And because I was moving around more, I didn't find his advice very helpful, if there was any at all. He was very like, get in the office, 10 minutes later, he's out. Like not even 10, 5 minutes. The one time I asked him if I could get an alternative to benzoyl peroxide, I just remember being like, I just don't want to bleach. I just don't want to have bleach all over my clothes all the time. I feel like it's helping, but isn't there anything else I could try? And he's like, just switch to white towels. And then he like left the room. And I was like, okay, so cool. But, you know, looking back, I think his practice was a lot more focused on skin cancer and, you know, all these things that I get. Like those are way more life-threatening than acne. But anyway, later on when I went to a different doctor, I think that I look back on it and think it's also good to go to a doctor who's like specifically specializes in acne and cares about the more cosmetic stuff, because not every doctor specializes in that. In my early mid-20s, it's hard to find pictures of how bad my skin was. I was caking on the makeup, like bad. So I wouldn't leave the house, and I certainly wouldn't allow a photo to be taken of me if I wasn't wearing makeup. And then, you know, after the fact, hopefully like a camera was smoothing my face too. Don't have a lot of pictures of that. I did start doing a few things that later on will come into my, you know, 5 things that actually worked for me. So I think that it was getting better, certainly, but it wasn't like I felt like, oh, I could go an entire month without having a breakout, which at this point in my life, I do feel like that. Still some stuff to be worked on, but I started going in the right direction, and I'll tell you what I was doing at that time. And then I had a breaking point when I think I was turning 28. It was my best friend's wedding. For probably the previous like 3 months, had just had some really bad, consistent breakouts. It was like I never got a break. It was just like relentless. So after her wedding and after it was just really stressful for me that I knew, like, oh, I was gonna be in these pictures that she had forever, and not that she cares about any of this, but it's just like embarrassing when you're 28 and you still haven't gotten your skin under control. Even though anyone else, I totally understand. Like, for some reason when it's yourself, you judge a little bit more harshly, I think. After her wedding, and I was just so upset about how bad my skin was that whole weekend, I finally got onto a prescription again, and this is one of my things that I'll talk about later. And anyway, ever since I made these 5 changes, my skin has been very predictable. I'm not saying I never ever break out. I'm not saying that I haven't broken out in the last 6 years. I can confidently say that the steadiness of my skin has meant that the breakouts that I do have are not anywhere near as inflamed. They're not, they don't last as long. And when they're gone, the scar doesn't stay as long as they did when I have really bad cystic acne that's really deep and leaves like a pit in your skin. So I thought I'd share. Okay, here we go. 5 things that actually worked for me to clear my skin after about 18 years with cystic acne. So number 1, realizing that all of the crap that I was trying was completely destroying my skin's moisture barrier. I have oily skin, but when you're a teenager, I feel like you don't believe that oily skin can also be dry and need moisture. So I was the typical oily skin person who I was just like wiping my face with these, they were Stridex pads. I don't even know if they make those anymore, but I was obsessed with those. And they basically had like salicylic acid in them and a lot of alcohol. And guess what? That destroyed my skin barrier. I remember there was maybe like a month where my skin looked completely flawless and smooth, almost to a scary point. Like it didn't look like I had pores anymore, which my skin always is, like the pores are pretty visible even when it's very clear. That's just my skin type. So I remember there was like a month where my skin looked so glass-like and perfect and porcelain, and then I never had a break from breakouts for like 4 years after that because I had completely destroyed the moisture barrier of my skin. So to repair it, I completely cut out anything with denatured alcohol in it. So I think that a lot of products that are marketed towards teens and anyone with kind of oily skin, they have a lot of alcohol in them. And there's good types of alcohol. There's fatty alcohols that actually bring moisture to your skin. But this is specifically denatured alcohol. If it was in a product, I threw it out. Like I needed to start fresh. So that's the first thing that I started, and that was hard to do. For example, I used to only ever wash my face with foaming cleansers because foaming cleansers, I mean, they dry your skin out, right? Like I had oily skin and I wanted to remove the oil. So I washed with foaming cleansers, which almost all have denatured alcohol in them. I think probably nowadays there are more options just because skincare has improved technology-wise so much. In my early 20s, I feel like that was my only option. So I completely switched over to products that were marketed towards drier skin. So one of the products, for example, that I started using was CeraVe Hydrating Face Wash. So it comes out almost like a cream. And that was something that was just one example of a product change that I made. Helped me once I added products in that really started curing me. The fact that my skin had built up its moisture barrier again was really helpful. So if you've never done that and you have really oily skin and really cystic acne, I recommend just cutting out anything that is stripping on your skin and see what happens. Anything that burns your skin or dries it out, I would stay away from. Just try it out for a couple months and see what happens. And number 2, kind of related to this as far as stripping my skin goes, but I stopped washing my face so much. So I would wash it, if I wore makeup that day, I would wash it at night, like I would take off my makeup and wash my face. But in the morning, I would just wipe my face with water, nothing else. This, I think, was lending to repairing my moisture barrier. And in the end, I think that something that was really valuable for me to learn is that my skin type is my skin type. My skin type isn't acne prone. I mean, it is, but my skin type is oily. So guess what? I'm gonna look like I got some grease on my face even when I didn't do anything and even when I'm not breaking out. And that's okay. I think I needed to learn that. So I wasn't trying to like fight my oils all the time and like in the morning wash all those oils off from nighttime, because I actually think that the repair that your skin does at night is really good and you should let your skin breathe and sit in that for longer during the day. I used to use like 10 products and I basically switched over to just 3, maybe 4. So makeup remover, a face wash at night, a treatment product, and sunscreen. There was a time when I wasn't even really using moisturizer because it felt like my skin's natural oils were allowed to come through and my skin was being actually nourished by its own oils and I didn't need a moisturizer. I do use moisturizer now. I've added it back in. Maybe not even every day though. I guess it also depends on the time of year. But yeah, just simplifying my routine, it needed to happen. I needed to just like strip away everything. Because I got so obsessed with like adding acids and I was doing AHA and BHA. It was very trendy back then. I was on this subreddit about skincare. Oh my god, I was obsessed with that in my early 20s. So I was trying everything that those people said to try. And guess what? My skin rejected me. My skin hated me because I probably didn't need all of that. Number 3. This is kind of silly, maybe, but it costs nothing to do. And if you've never tried it, give it a try. I stopped looking at my skin up close. So I had this rule with myself where I would step back from the mirror, like say I was in my bathroom and there's the sink vanity between me and the mirror. I wouldn't lean in to look at my face closer. Mostly because the very last bout, like the last straw of breakout that I had, I was working from home for the first time in my life, and I think I was just alone with myself too much. And so I would sit on my computer and, you know, do my work, and I'd like, I don't know, have my mirror next to me because that morning I had done my skincare or I put on makeup, and when I had a break, I would like look at my face and almost look for things that I could pick at, look for imperfections, and that's unhealthy. Let's be real. Like, I don't think that anyone needs to do that. Guess what? When you meet someone in real life, no one's saying, oh, hi, nice to meet you, my name's blah, 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 and blah, 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 and then they, like, look up at your face really close to inspect. No one does that. So why am I doing that? Usually, you make things worse. You don't make things better. I think there's this misconception, people who pick, that if I get to it before a certain point, I will make it better by picking. In my experience, it is never made better by picking at any stage, especially when you haven't gotten the root cause under control, because it's gonna get inflamed if your skin hasn't stabilized yet. Stop looking at myself so close in the mirror. Honestly, I know it's simple, but it's true. Also, hydrocolloid bandages. Now, I know I said not to pick. I still stand by that. I think that hydrocolloid bandages, if used correctly, can prevent picking. For me, I work from home, and if I feel like a breakout is happening and it's actually come to a head, not one that hasn't come to a head and still needs to work itself out and it'll just make it worse by touching it. I mean, it's come to a head. I can put it on all day long until it just kind of gets rid of all the gunk in there. And then usually it's much more healed when you stop the bandages. So I recommend trying those. I mean, they're just at Target now. Like, number 4. So this one is obvious. talked about going to a dermatologist before, but I finally got a real prescription again when I was 28. I got Curology. Now, I don't think you need to get Curology. I just think it needs to be a prescription that a doctor has looked at your skin and said, this is the type of acne that you have and this is what's going to help. And it really helped me personally that Curology is just all in one bottle. It's one step. Do one pump on your face once a day. Easy to follow. So yeah, any all-in-one prescription treatment, preferably, and this is another thing that I think helped, preferably with a doctor that is like more cosmetic leaning, like that actually specializes in acne. I think that because Curology was like based on that, like getting rid of acne, that's why they listened to me a little bit more and I was able to talk about more specifics. And then the last thing is consistency. So something that I think really did me in when I was in my early 20s was that I was just jumping from thing to thing, trying everything. Even when I had a prescription, I would still like add in a random like exfoliant or whatever was the trendy thing to do at the time, and I think that really detriment in the end. I should have just kept at one thing. Something I learned too is that something that isn't an active will not cause you to, quote, purge. So if you're using something and you're breaking out and you're just like, you keep breaking out and it's like a moisturizer, it's not making you purge. It just probably doesn't work for you. So something, as far as an active goes though, it can cause you to purge, which means you should use it for a longer period of time before you give up on it. What I did specifically was with Curology was I was like, I'm going to try this for 90 days, 3 months at least, to let my skin acclimate and figure out if it's actually worth it. And lo and behold, when I wasn't adding in a bunch of other stuff to compete with it, it actually did end up working. And then 3 months became like, oh, let me try another 3 months. And then I'd been on it for 6 months and I realized, looking back at my before photos, oh wow, yeah, things have calmed down a lot. Maybe it's actually working. So setting yourself a timeline when you start a new active like that, I think is helpful. And the nice thing about having a doctor is that after those 3 months, you can check in and be like, hey, this is how I feel. And they can either say, okay, let me adjust, or just stick with it for a little while and we can talk again in a month or two or something. So those are the 5 things that I think worked for me personally. Now, what did not work? And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not saying that you shouldn't be doing any of these things, but I'm just saying, if you've heard all these things about how like this is why your skin is awful and this is going to cure it, again, just know that I've tried it all. So what didn't work was hormonal birth control. I was put on birth control when I was like 18, I think, because of my skin. Well, yes, as you can see, 10 years later, still very much so struggling with it. Still was very much related to my hormones. So that didn't help personally, me at least. Not saying it's bad in general and it's bad for everyone, but at least for me, I don't really think it helped. And I've had periods where I've been on and off of hormonal birth control, and my skin has never really been affected by it either way. Another thing that didn't work, cutting out dairy, not eating cheese, not eating ice cream, cutting out sugar. In general, just like all these diet things that they'll tell you, like, well, if you just cut this out, then you'll never have an issue again. To be honest, I still eat a lot of dairy and I eat plenty of sugar. I will say I don't eat a lot of processed foods as much as I used to, maybe. So I can't say that that's not helping, but yeah, no, I still eat plenty of cheese, and guess what? My skin is still fairly clear, and like at least relative to my skin, so I'm still happy with it. I'm not gonna give up cheese. Maybe it's a hot take. Okay, another thing that didn't work. I wrote spearmint tea, but it's really just like any sort of like herbal, like, oh, you drink peppermint or you drink spearmint or you put spearmint tea on your face, like in a warm compress. That personally never changed anything for me, but I will tell you I was desperate and I tried it. So if you're curious, not something that cured my skin, but who knows, maybe for some people it worked. I also wanted to put like laser treatments. So I did get some laser treatments, like, I don't know if it was red light therapy or what it was, at my dermatologist when I was in my like mid-20s, maybe early mid-20s. And while I do think that it helped the active breakout, and I think that it helps fade acne scars quicker, I will say that it's not going to be the silver bullet. If you still have some root issue, like the fact that your skin doesn't turn over a lot and it's oily and it produces too much oil and all this stuff, like that's what my prescription helps with. Like when I look back on it, it's something that maybe I would try now that my skin is under control and there are some scarring issues and texture issues that I personally have. No longer do I have like active breakouts, which when I got the laser treatments I did. So to me, that's not a cure, because what, every 2 weeks you gotta go to a doctor and get a laser treatment? I don't know, maybe some people do that, but that's not realistic for me. That's not something that I'm going to stay consistent with. So yeah, just thought I'd mention it. Not saying you shouldn't do it, but like I said, I think I'm a better candidate for it now than I was in my early 20s when I was actively breaking out. Okay, and that's it. Thanks for watching. I would love to know if there's anything that you resonated with on this list, if there's anything that you think I should add that helped you, that maybe, I don't know, could help me too. Even though things have calmed down, I'll be real, like I still have a breakout every couple months. And I think that when your skin has been stable for a while, it's less just emotionally draining, emotionally and like physically, it's painful, all that. So I think that I think a lot less about it now, which I think also is a good thing, but I did want to come on and just document this, because while I don't feel like I really want to talk about skincare a lot, because like I said, I've tried to simplify things and I pretty much look for the same basic ingredients and everything I use, yeah, I thought it would be helpful for someone. So thank you for watching, and if you'd like to see more like this, give it a thumbs up. I've learned other stuff too that I feel like I've just had a lot of trial and error, and I can talk about it here. But yeah.